Hey everybody, my name is Josiah Thibodeau. Welcome to the channel. Today's episode is titled Stop Trying to Get Immediate Results. And really the goal here is to emphasize the importance of shifting your focus from seeking immediate results to embracing a mindset that values patience, consistency, effort, long-term planning, and not just jumping from one thing to the next because we try something for a little bit and it doesn't work. So we move on to the next thing, or we have that shiny object syndrome where we're involved in something, we see something that looks better, so we drop what we're doing now to go chase that other thing. So it's trying to get out of that mentality, out of that trap. And really the key understanding here is how do we achieve that meaningful and sustainable success that's required for us to be able to move beyond the allure of this, I guess, quick fix mindset. We have that quick or get rich quick mindset, but there's also this get fixed quick mindset that we deal with a lot. And so instead of doing that is how do we commit to deliberate, persistent action that allows us to align with the long-term objectives that we're looking for. And really some of this just comes down to understanding the idea that when we are seeking or pursuing success, oftentimes we are tempted to just go after that immediate result. We're tempted to just seek that instant gratification because that's what our society is based on these days. Everything is instantaneous gratification. Everything is this idea of give it to me now. You can go anywhere. You can go out to eat, and if our order isn't brought to us or served to us in a certain time frame, we start to get upset. We start to get frustrated. If we order something online and it isn't delivered in a specific time frame, we can start to get upset, start to get frustrated, start to worry. What's going on? Where's my order? Right? And it's this idea that we're so used to having everything just delivered to us instantaneously that we start to think that that's how life works. We start to think that everything operates that way, and it doesn't operate that way. So we have to get to the point where we begin to realize that the true progress that we want to realize in our lives, the true progress that we're aiming for or that we're shooting for is not overnight. It isn't something that is supposed to just happen immediately. So the things that we really desire, a lot of times those take time. A lot of time it takes patience, sitting there and going through the fire of the experience, whatever that might be, in order to achieve the end result. So we have to get to that point where we understand that delayed gratification is really a key to lasting achievement. It's what allows us to get to that point so that when we reach that objective, we can feel really good about that. I mean, there's so many times, take my kids, for example, where they really want something. They want it so bad and they're just begging for it. Please, 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 please. And the times where I might give in and I do give them that thing, that happiness for that thing only lasts so long. It's a very short-lived experience. They get that object, that thing that they desire, whatever it is that they're shooting for, asking for, and within a day, it's almost like they're over it. They've received that rush of dopamine, and now they're moving on to, okay, what else can we get now? Because our society is constantly reinforcing that within us. It's on social media. Every time you scroll on social media, it's this instant gratification of being delivered content that resonates with you, that makes you feel a certain way. And so since you're feeling a certain way, it makes you laugh, it makes you cringe, it makes you angry, whatever it is, it's causing some sort of emotional response within you. And since it's doing that, you start to get this sort of addiction to it because you're feeling the chemical rush through your body. And the longer that you do that, the more that you allow yourself to integrate within that process of scrolling through social media, the more that you want to do it because you're essentially training yourself to get these rushes of dopamine and cortisol and noradrenaline and all the different chemicals that make up the emotional range that we experience on a regular basis. And it can feel good. Sometimes those bad feelings feel good to us because we are having some sort of cathartic experience because of it. It doesn't mean that it is good for us, though. And so when we're looking at this idea of how do we stop trying to chase or go after immediate results, we have to, I guess, get to the point where we are okay with the waiting. We're okay with having to sit and be patient. And that's a hard thing to do. especially when everything's just boom, 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 right there at your fingertips. The pitfalls of immediate gratification that we experience a lot of time is when we have this desire for quick results and we don't get those quick results, it can lead to a lot of frustration. It can lead to burnout. It can lead to us feeling like there's something wrong with us. We're not doing something right. There's a lot of impatience that can result in undermining whatever's going on that is actually building growth. But since it's not happening soon enough, we cut the tree off at the roots, and we jump ship and we move over on and try to do something different. And so that growth, we're building that growth, and then we cut it off and it stagnates, and then it dissipates and it disappears from our lives because we didn't stick with it long enough to actually see the fulfillment of that growth come to pass. If we want to have success in our lives, whatever it is that you're going for, it could be in any area. You could be in business and you want success in business. You could be an athlete and you want success in some sort of athletic career, entertainment career. It could be in your own personal life with relationships. It could be success in having really good, healthy relationships. It could be in your emotional life, in your mental life, being able to feel successful in your emotional life because you no longer get upset or frustrated or angry or sad or depressed or whatever it is because of the different situations happening around you. In your mental life, being able to control your mind a little bit better, stay focused, make sure that you are not allowing yourself to get drawn down into different types of negativity and emotional turmoil because now you're on top of things, you're thinking about it, you're conscious of it. The problem is that when it comes to this immediate gratification is we can't get to that place of true success because we don't give it the time that it needs to breathe, the time that it needs to grow. We're just, like I said earlier, we're chopping the tree off at the roots and everything dies and it dissipates and it goes away. And in order to get it back, you essentially have to start over. You start over, ground up, to try to get to the point where you were. Now, I do think that as you're going, you learn little lessons along the way. You grab all those different pieces and things, and you put them into some sort of conglomeration of a learning experience over time. But if we continue to do that, the time frame for us to experience the success that we're looking for is very long. It takes a long time for us to get there. If we could stick with one thing and just really do that thing and really focus on that thing, it shortens the amount of time that's needed. We compound the time of growth. So we have to get to that place where we begin to allow ourselves to live in that place of discomfort. For me, this had a lot to do with depression and anxiety. I've mentioned this before in some of the previous episodes, but just dealing with the depression and anxiety, trying to get over that, I tried so many different things. I jumped from one thing to another because as I started moving forward and progressing and realizing, okay, something in my life needs to change. Something in my life is not working the way that it's supposed to. My emotional life is dysregulated. My mental life is dysregulated. How do I get this back into a state where I am now feeling fulfilled, freedom, peace, joy, love? I'm not trapped by emotions. I'm not trapped by my negative thinking and my thoughts. The issue was that I would start down the path of doing something. Right? I go down this path of working towards the goal of overcoming depression and anxiety, learning how to regulate my thoughts and my emotions. But it didn't happen in the time frame that I wanted it to. It didn't happen fast enough. I was so desperate that I needed a fix right now. I need something to change my life right now because I cannot live this way anymore. I cannot live with this depression and anxiety anymore. I cannot live life like this. It's too painful. It's too miserable. So when I'm trying these things, they're not happening fast enough. I see something else. I hear somebody else talking about a different way, a different, adventure that you can go on to try to get to that point where you are achieving the success that you're looking for. And you go, well, okay, they're saying that this works. What I'm experiencing now isn't happening like I thought it was. Maybe I'll go try this thing instead. And so we go try this other thing. What do we find? It still takes work to get there. It's not an instantaneous result. Now, I do think that you can experience quicker results depending on a lot of different factors. But overall, you have to put in work. You have to have patience. You have to be willing to sit through the difficult times, the boring times, the times where it doesn't feel like anything's happening. You don't really see growth. But this is how most things worthwhile in life actually work. If you want to lose weight or you want to bulk up and build muscle, you have to work out. You have to do something that causes your body to go through some sort of experience, and generally that requires some sort of pain, and it requires a time frame where you have to be patient. And during that time frame, it can feel like nothing's happening, like nothing's going on, like this workout isn't doing anything. Why should I continue to go down this road? And that's something that we need to be able to understand in our lives. If you want to see change in your life, you have to be willing to stick with whatever it is that you're doing. You have to be willing to go through kind of that fire of dealing with the uncomfortable process of growth. And a lot of times that's just having patience. A lot of times that's just being willing to stick with it for the long haul. We could think about it as a harvest. You know, if you go out and you plant a seed and you water it and then you dig it up the next day, you've ruined it. You've ruined the harvest because you can't wait. You have to go and plant the seed, water it, tend to it, weed, the area around it, make sure the birds aren't coming in and eating it, nothing's digging it up, that it has the proper sunlight, everything that it needs to be able to germinate and grow. And then once you do that, the seed begins to grow, and then you can harvest the crop. You can take away whatever you planted there, but you have to have patience for that. If you don't have patience, it's never going to grow. You will never experience the harvest that you're looking for because you can't just sit back and understand that there's a process that needs to happen in order for seed in the ground to fruit on the vine, right? There's a process before you can get to that place. So I have a few quotes here that I want to read because they all lend to this idea of patience, growth, and that this idea that things aren't instantaneous. And I think it's good to hear from other people, other individuals who have lived life, walked through life, have experienced this for themselves. So I want to share some of these with you. The first one is from Leo Tolstoy. And he said, the two most powerful warriors are patience and time. Mahatma Gandhi said, to lose patience is to lose the battle. I have just 3 things to teach: simplicity, patience, compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures. That's Lao Tzu. Patience attracts happiness. It brings near that which is far. This is from a Swahili proverb. The next is from Arnold H. Glasgow. The key to everything is patience. You get the chicken by hatching the egg, not by smashing it. So great. I love that one. And then the last one here is from Germany Kinney. Results happen over time, not overnight. Work hard, stay consistent, and be patient. As we go through life, a lot of times we forget those concepts. We are in a moment within our lives that a lot of times can feel uncomfortable. And because it feels uncomfortable, we want to find a way to escape. We want to find a way to break out and to get free, which makes sense. We don't like to be uncomfortable. We don't want to have to go through that phase. If you're not in threat, if you're not being threatened, you need to start to kind of maybe shift and change your mindset about that. If you're not in a place where you're being harmed, where you have some sort of physical, mental, verbal abuse coming towards you, and it's more of, I need to change. I know I need to change. I need to change for myself so that I can become a better person, a better version of who I am. I want to create a business and have a successful business. I want to, do the athletics, get into politics, become somebody in entertainment, whether it's an actor and musician. In order to do those, though, you have to have patience. If you start a business, it's not going to take off overnight. There's a certain amount of work that you have to put in order to grow that business. Same thing goes with every other thing. If you want to be a great athlete, you have to put in a lot of hard work to become a great athlete. Usain Bolt has a great quote that says, I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds and people give up when they don't see results in 2 months. It's so good. 4 years of his life to run a 9-second race so that he could win a gold medal. And people are giving up because 2 months, they don't see any progress. They don't see the results that they're looking for. So this idea that, instantaneous progress is what we should be expecting regardless, no matter what, is a fallacy. It's not true. It's not true to life. It's not true. If you look at nature, nothing works that way. Everything takes time. Everything has a process. Everything goes through stages of growth. If you have a child, once they come out of the womb, they're not talking. They're not, you're not shipping them off to go do a job. They can't do anything. There's a growth process that has to happen for that child to get to the point where they're developed enough to be able to do certain things and hit certain milestones. So we see this in life, but when it comes to us trying to achieve things that we want to achieve, we tend to just forget all of that and think that, oh, I'm deserving. I should just have this right now. That's not the case. That's not how it works. Again, if we go back to that issue of instantaneous gratification, we think about, Amazon. We get our order delivery same or next day now. Your groceries can be delivered same or next day. Long lines drive people crazy. We have so many different options to go online and do things that we used to have to go and stand in line for. And so, boom, it's just done. Boom, we're finished. It doesn't take any time for us to get through those different, what used to be obstacles to what we would consider, having a good day, because now I'm waiting in line at the DMV, or I'm having to do this thing, and there's all these people that I'm having to contend with. I mean, we could do everything from our phone, from our computers. It's so easy now. But when it comes to the real things in life that matter, when it doesn't come easy, we give up. We give up prematurely. And we think that this thing is wrong, this thing doesn't work, this tool that I had doesn't work. But that's not the case. The tool might be perfectly fine. It's just how consistent were you with it? How much work did you put into it? How much time did you actually spend going in and doing these different things? It's what makes a great musician from a so-so musician. The great musician that's all they do is play. If you have somebody who is good, pick any instrument you want. What's your favorite instrument? The person who's the best at that instrument is the one who's playing all the time. And it doesn't matter about talent. Talent can help, but if you have the talent but you don't put in the work, the person who puts in the work will outperform the person with the talent. So it's not just about talent either. It's how much are you willing to be consistent? How much are you willing to stay the course? How long are you willing to endure this tension or uncomfortable space of not getting what you want right now? If we go back to that idea of the farmer here, right? If you're the farmer and you want to reap the harvest, if you don't water the seed, you don't get the harvest. If you don't attend to the weeds and pull the weeds, you don't get the harvest. If you let the birds come in and eat the seed, you don't get the harvest. If the harvest comes in, but you don't go out and harvest, you don't get the harvest. There are things that come into play in your life that you have to do. Instead of just sitting around hoping, wishing, and praying that it all happens for you in the timeline that you want it to happen to because you're uncomfortable and you don't want to live in the situation that you're living in anymore. You have to learn how to play the long game. I got this from Alex Hermosi. It was a few years ago when I heard him talking about this. Playing the long game. How much time are you willing to give in order to achieve the results you're looking for? Most people are saying, I'll give it a few weeks. I'll give it a couple of months. In his mind, he's saying, let's see what we get in 5 years. And that's something that I've been doing in my life. And it has drastically changed the way that I look and perceive my own either issues or struggles that I have, whether they're physical, mental, emotional, or whether they are in the realm of business, entertainment, doing what I'm doing right now, and being able to take a step back because now I have this concept, this understanding of, okay, I'm going to give myself the time needed to get to the point that I want to get to. And if you want to change your life, you have to do the same thing. You have to stop looking at it as I'm so desperate that I have to have the answer now. I've said this in the past. If there was a magic pill that would just give us everything that we wanted and needed, everybody would have taken it by now. And we would all have the absolute desires of our heart. But that pill doesn't exist. Even if you look at the idea of manifestation, and I do believe manifestation is real, but at the same time, you have to work on manifestation. You have to work to get to the point where you're even open enough to be able to receive what we would call manifestation. And it's not just a sitting and hoping and praying. It's a constant being aware of what's going on with your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions. And anytime the negative thought comes in, to try to steal away the seed, if you will, that you're trying to plant. Anytime that thought comes in and tries to steal it, you're on top of it and you see it, and you're like, no, you're not going to take that away. You get rid of it and you go back into focusing. That takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of time. That can take a lot of energy. It's allowing yourself to be comfortable with that process, though. And that's the same thing for everything else in life. I think people manifest the things that they want, not simply because they just say a mantra or because they just have an idea, oh, I want this thing. It's because they become so focused on it, they start to see the opportunities that lead toward whatever it is that they're attempting to manifest. And because they're doing that, that thing begins to actually manifest. But it's because they're so focused on it. They're working towards it. They're in alignment with it. It's not, oh, I want to manifest this thing, and then they completely turn away and they have nothing to do with this idea of what they're trying or hoping to manifest. But that's the reason people don't manifest, is because you have this idea, oh, I want to manifest this thing, and then you just go and you do something completely different. It's just this whole idea of, it's almost like we just think we deserve everything just because. And that's it. And in one sense, yeah, we do. We're people. We're human beings. There are certain things that it's like, yeah, we should deserve that. But that's not the way that the world works. The world doesn't work that way. You have to be able to get into alignment with the things that you want and then stay consistent, stay focused, stay dedicated, continue to pursue, continue to work towards, continue to move in the direction that you're wanting to go. Not just, I'm in this direction and now I'm giving up because I'm not seeing it happen fast enough, so I'm going to shift my perspective and go over to this direction instead because this shiny object over here now looks much better than the one that used to look amazing, right? I mean, we do this all the time. So the long game, playing the long game, is a great way to be able to start to shift your mindset from, okay, I'm in this position that I'm in right now. I'm struggling with whatever it is that I'm struggling with. I'm trying to overcome whatever I'm trying to overcome. There are a million different reasons or obstacles or issues that we deal with or go through. I'm in this place. I'm going to allow myself to be in this place and be okay with it and understand and know that that's all right. That's okay. It's okay that I'm in this place. If, for me, with the depression, if we go back to that, I got to the point where I was like, it's okay that you're depressed. It's okay that you are living in this place of depression because you know it. You're aware of it. This is when I really started to make breakthroughs. It wasn't because I wasn't just trying to find and latch onto anything that worked. I'd done that so many times and nothing worked. But it's when I got to the place of like, it's okay. It's okay to be here. It's okay to rest in this state and to understand that you are in a place that is uncomfortable. It feels miserable. You feel trapped. You're wondering if you're going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. And fearing, really, in some sense, that you are going to have to deal with this the rest of your life. But that's okay. It's okay that you feel like that. It's okay that you're there. It's okay that you're struggling. It's okay that you feel like nobody else knows or understands what you're really going through. That's okay. And as I started to do that, and I started to get to the point where I started to say, okay, that's okay. I'm going to stick with this, and I'm going to continue to work, and I'm going to continue to learn. I'm going to continue to grow. I'm going to continue to develop myself however I can so I can get to the point where I can make those incremental changes along the way. There are a lot of things I did. I did a bunch of different things. And at some point, I started kind of coupling these different avenues and areas together, but they all kind of fit under the same umbrella. I got away from just trying, I'm just going to try this one thing over here and it doesn't work. Okay, now I'm going to try this over here. I started taking bits and pieces and putting them together and meshing them into a sustainable process that then I'm able to use to move forward so that I get to the place where I can overcome depression, so that I can overcome anxiety. When you learn to play the long game and allow yourself to be okay with that, it makes it much easier. Because now you're not putting pressure on yourself to have to get fixed right now. I have to have this answer right now. I have to have this achievement right now. If you look at the greatest business leaders throughout history, you look at some of the most inspirational people throughout history, whoever it is that, it could be in any industry, occupation. It could be somebody who, it'd be like Mother Teresa, somebody who's giving away everything to try to help the poor. It could be anything. You look at those people and you'll start to realize that for them to get to the place that made them so successful in whatever endeavor they were trying to become successful in, they had to go through a lot of hardship, a lot of work, a lot of years of toil, overcoming, pushing through obstacles. There's so many things that they all went through. Rejection after rejection after rejection, failure after failure after failure. But their decision was that I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep doing this even if it takes the rest of my life. Some of these people worked for years and years on their different products or services or whatever it is that they're offering before they even got to the point where we are able to recognize them and remember them for who they were. At the beginning, nobody knew who they were. At the beginning, many of them struggled emotionally, physically, mentally, with self-doubt, limiting beliefs, all the different things that you and I struggle with. They struggled with those too. They're no different than you and I. And so getting to that point where you recognize that and you start to say, okay, I can do this. I can sit here and I can endure this crucible of time that it's going to take to go from point A to point B. I can do that. And you begin to let go, man, life starts to get easier. It's not as difficult because you let go of the requirements that this must happen right now. And when you let go of that requirement, it's like a burden or a weight is just released. And you can feel free to just start to live instead of constantly focused on, I have to have this, and it's out of the desperation and consternation and frustration, and we're trying to hold on to this thing, and because we're holding on to it so tight, we get disappointed because it doesn't happen like we think it should. One of the major problems that people run into when they're going on this journey is not just that they're holding on to it, it's that we just give up too soon. We quit. We quit before we should. We feel like we need that miracle now. We feel like we have to have that change right now. Since it doesn't happen, maybe it's not for me. Sometimes it's not even that shiny object somewhere else. You can get so beat down with the situations that you're going through. You can get so frustrated with the life that you're living. And especially after trying different things and feeling like you're not seeing results, you can just get so frustrated. You can get so disappointed in yourself and life, and you start to think that maybe this is just how it is. Maybe I can't be happy. Maybe happiness is just for other people. Maybe I can't start this business that I want to start, and that's just for other people. That I'm not smart enough for that. I don't have what it takes. I can't be this particular athlete that I thought I could be or wanted to be because I'm not getting the breaks that I want. I can't be this actor, this entertainer. I can't get this particular job that I want, that I think is going to be able to help me provide for my family. I don't have the proper training, the resources in order to get it, the proper schooling for it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get there. Maybe where I am right now is it. Maybe this is it for me. This is it for me and my family. It could get very depressing. You can get to that point where you really struggle with it and you start to just question life in general. But I just want to tell you, you don't have to stay in that place. I stayed in that place for a very long time because I didn't understand how to get out of it. I didn't understand some of these things that I'm talking about in these episodes that I'm putting out, in the newsletter that I write, and the posts that I put on social media. I didn't understand these concepts. They were foreign to me. And because they were foreign, I struggled for a very, very long time when I didn't need to struggle. But once you get to the place where you start to learn, you start to understand, you start to see, you start to realize that it's not just you dealing with that issue or that problem, it begins to open up space. It begins to free you up. You're able to start to take steps forward in ways that maybe you didn't feel like you could. Some of the other issues that you might deal with as you're going through this process is the fear of failure. Feeling like you are going to, well, if you fail miserably, then what? But also the worry of what other people are going to think about you. Because I said I'm going to do this thing, and then I end up failing at this thing. What are these people going to think about me? They're going to be judging me. They're going to think that I don't have what it takes. Whatever the crazy thought is that you have. Because we all have that crazy thought. We all have that feeling of, what if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if, what if I go bankrupt? What if everything just collapses in on me? What if I can't make my parents proud? My spouse proud? My siblings proud? My friends proud? What if I am letting people down? There's so many things. But we have to understand that, okay, just give it the time though. Allow yourself the time to breathe. And a lot of times that weight just kind of dissipates. It starts to move off of you, because now it's not this urgent, pressing thing that just has to be done or else. If we can get out of that mindset and allow ourselves to just be okay with it, oh man, it feels so much better. I cannot tell you how much better life got once I started applying these ideas to my own life. When I started to make this change in my life, I felt so free. It was great. It's been awesome. So I hope that you take this and you start to apply it to your life as well. As you go through this, you feel a lot of times like you're alone. You can feel like you're the only one going through the process. All right, we kind of brought this up a little bit. Every single person out there, though, has had to go through this crucible of time. They've had to go through the fire of disappointment, being uncomfortable because whatever they're doing hasn't worked out. I mean, there are people who have started business after business and failed, and then the 10th business that they start, that's the one that takes off. But it's the people who are willing to stay in it regardless of what's going on. They just say, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna make it work. Somehow, some way, I'm gonna make it work. And I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna quit. Those are the people who become successful. And it's not just in business or sports or anything like that. It's people in their own lives, in their own emotional life. Overcoming depression can be very difficult. It can be hard. It can be challenging. But I got to the point where it's like, I'm not going to live this way anymore. And I didn't give up. And now I'm not depressed. I don't deal with depression. If depression even tries to start to come in and I start to have kind of this, I start to feel down, I am so good at catching it now. I immediately just catch it and I'm like, no, we're not going back there. Are you kidding me? I've worked too hard. I've come too far and I have overcome too much to allow myself to go back to that place. I'm not going to do it. So when you start to, develop yourself in this way, you start to take some of these concepts and apply them to your life, you'll get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to overcome. That's why people who they've, started 9 businesses and the 10th one is now the one that takes off. They did that because they got to the point where like, I put too much effort into this. Something is going to work. I'm going to continue to work until the day I die and make this happen. And if I don't, then I work doing this until I get to the point to the day I die. It just becomes this commitment that you go after. And it's because of that commitment and not giving up that you eventually find a way. Something opens up. A door opens up for you. The barriers and the walls before you begin to crumble. Because life starts to see, I can't hold this one back. This individual is too focused and too strong and too adamant and perseveres too much. I'm not going to be able to hold this one back. So instead of it being a fight, we're going to open up the doors. That's what it could seem like. Doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly how it works. It's just an analogy of how things can begin to work when you stop giving up, when you stop blaming other people for your problems, when you stop saying it's everything out there and you start to take responsibility for yourself and you start to say, you know what? I'm going to be the owner of my life. I'm going to do what I need to do to get better. That might be spending time reading at night instead of watching TV. It might be taking a class that you know you need to take but you've put off for so long because you don't have the money for it, or you don't have the time for it, or you don't know if it's going to be worthwhile in the end anyway. It's putting in the hours that you need to become that top performing person. When it comes down to it, generally, the problems that you have are in your head. All the obstacles that you have are in your head. Now, there are certain situations that people face that are very unfortunate. They can be very debilitating. They can be very frustrating. There's certain situations that can cause a lot of issues in trying to get yourself to the point where you feel like you could be somebody who has the ability to overcome. There's a lot of things out there that can happen. But for the most part, the issues that we face in life are really in our heads. We just don't want to take responsibility for it. It's too easy to blame other people. It's too easy to blame circumstances. It's too easy to blame the situations going on around us and say that because of these external factors, I'm not getting or becoming the person that I want to become. I'm not getting the things that I want to get, the results that I want to get. I'm not achieving at the level that I want to achieve. And it's not because of me, it's because this person over here is holding me back. It's my job isn't, allowing me to advance the way that I want. This coach doesn't believe in me like they should. I know what I have in me, but they're not believing in me. You're just making excuses as to why you can't do, why you can't be. That's all it is. Most of the time, the problem is in our head. There's a lot of times where I've listened to different people, and I've even done this in my own life. You go to a job and you work harder than you're supposed to, and people around you are like, what are you doing? Like, stop working so hard. You're going to work yourself out of a job because you're going to show, management that you don't have enough to do. But what I found is that when you do that, you end up getting a better paying position. You get a promotion. Management isn't looking at you like, this idiot over here, they're working too hard. Management is looking at you and be like, hey, we need to do something with this person. We need to take this person and actually give them some responsibility because they're outperforming everybody else here. We have to be able to go in and discipline ourselves so that we start to do that in life. Not just for a job, for your life. It's very, very difficult. I just did a psilocybin experience the other night. When I do these, I don't do them that often, but when I do them, I like to work on focus because it's very difficult in one of those experiences to stay focused. There's so much, your thoughts are just going 100 miles an hour. There's all this, imagery that's going on, and it can be hard to focus. But when you focus, that's when the best stuff happens. It's hard to focus though. It's the same thing in life. It's hard to focus in life, but when you can learn to really focus, that's when the best stuff happens. That's when everything that you hoped would happen begins to actually happen. We're just so undisciplined. We're so unfocused in our lives. Now, you might be disciplined in something. You might have a very disciplined practice in one area, but does that transition through all the areas? That's hard to do. It's hard to be focused like that. It's hard to be disciplined like that. So it's teaching yourself how to do that over time and get to that point where you can stay in that place. When you don't do that, what I found, at least for me, is I start to play the role of the victim. And I start to look at those external factors and say, because of these external things happening, this is why my life isn't going the way that I want. Instead of taking responsibility for it and saying, no, you're just not being disciplined enough. You're not staying focused enough. You're not putting in the effort that's needed to get you to the point that you want to get to. It's not this person out here. It's not this circumstance that you're up against. It's you. Josiah, you are the one who's not giving it your all. You're the one who's holding yourself back. You have limiting beliefs in your mind that you continually fall back on because of your upbringing, because you formulated an idea of the world and you haven't been able to get out of that process. You haven't been able to formulate a new idea yet. Start formulating that new idea and start living it every single day. You have to stop living that victim mentality. You have to stop looking at everything out there and saying it's everything out there right now. In our society right now, in what is going on, 2025, all you have to do is get on social media And it doesn't matter if you're a liberal, a Republican, conservative. It doesn't matter if you're somewhere in between. You can find a million people all pointing fingers outside of themselves and saying it's all these different things. That's why I have a problem with life. That's why I have a problem with, being able to do the things that I want to do. And on one hand, it's true. But on the other hand, you're the problem. You have to start looking at life like that. If you're not living the life that you want to live, what can you do to make that change? Not relying on these people out here. Once you get to a certain age, you shouldn't have to do that anymore. It's what can you do as an individual to overcome whatever it is that you're going through? How can you manage your own emotions? How can you manage your own feelings? And it's not that bad stuff isn't happening out there. It's not that there isn't craziness in the world and there aren't things that are very malevolent. If you just constantly blame that, you're never going to develop the power needed, the internal power needed to be able to live a life that you want to live, because it's always going to be robbed and stolen by these things outside of you. You're constantly giving your power over to these external people and events, situations, because you're not taking control of yourself. That's a very difficult process. It can be hard to do. So here's a few steps for you to hopefully get you to the point where you can start to take these concepts and apply them to your life. So step 1 is starting to learn how to play the long game. Start playing the long game. Stop giving yourself just a couple of weeks to see the growth or achievement that you're looking for. If your time horizon is, longer than the couple weeks because of maybe you're in business, so you're going to give yourself, I'm going to give myself a year. Give yourself 2 years. Give yourself 3 years. Stretch that time horizon out so that you actually have room to learn how to develop specific tools and resources that you need to get through and accomplish the goal that you're after. Be willing to do that. Be willing to say, you know what, I'm dealing with this emotional turmoil right now. I'm going to give myself the next year to start to progress and move forward on it. I'm going to choose something and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to decide that I'm actually going to finally go to therapy and do therapy every other week for the next 6 months and just see what happens. I'm going to put myself in it and stick with it. I'll see what happens. Once I get to that 6-month mark, I'll reassess. I'll see how I'm feeling. I'll see if I feel like life is changing at all. And if it's not, maybe at that point, I might pivot a little bit and start to look at something else. Instead of just going to therapy, maybe I'll start adding in different types of books that I can read, build my knowledge on how to help regulate my own emotional life or mental life. If you're doing business or sports or entertainment or any other thing, you're going to school to get a degree for whatever it is that you're trying to get a degree in. You want to become a doctor, a lawyer, any of these different things. If it's a trade school, I'm going to give myself this amount of time. After I do that, I'm going to get some sort of probably lower level position. And then after that, I could start moving up the ladder. How much time do you think that needs, though? If you only give yourself the time, okay, after I get out of school, I'm expecting to be, a junior partner. I mean, your expectations are radically off at that point. So it's having the right expectations, giving yourself the amount of time needed, and then sticking with it. Can you be okay with a year? Can you be okay with 2 years? Can you be okay with 5 years? Can you put yourself in that position, like, if I don't have this in the first 2 or 3 years, that's okay, because I'm looking at 5 years. I'm looking at a 10-year horizon. I'm looking at a 20-year horizon. I mean, we'll go back to that idea of Amazon. I don't think when Jeff Bezos started that his mindset was, I'm only going to give this a year, and if it doesn't work, then I'll start doing something else. He had an idea for what Amazon was and what it's become for a very long time. It may have morphed here and there beyond the scope of what he initially imagined or thought, because that's just how life works. But his idea was that, hey, the internet's something that's going to be a thing. We're going to start using it. What if I build this company? And as I build this company and as the internet grows, this company begins to grow. And I offer these products first, but once people start to understand how the internet works, I can start to offer more products and I can build a company. He had a long-term goal or vision for that. Same thing with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs had a long-term goal or vision. If you look at Elon Musk, which I know a lot of people are upset with Elon Musk right now, but if you look at what he's doing in business, he has a very long-term objective. I mean, I don't know how long SpaceX has been around, but his goal is to get people to Mars, to start a civilization on Mars. That is a very long time horizon that he has to be okay with. If he went into that with I'm going to give it 2 years, it's not going to work. Of course not. None of these companies that are household names would be where they are if they did not have a long-term vision or goal, if they did not give themselves the time needed to get to that place. The companies that fail oftentimes are ones that they don't have that long-term goal. They don't have that vision that's pulling them along, keeping them in check as they go through life. So get used to that idea of the long game. The second thing is to start feeling what it would be like to have accomplished the goal. Not just seeing it, not just looking at it and being like, oh, you know what? I'm at point A and I want to be at point B. It's what is that ultimate achievement look like? Not only what does it look like, what does it feel like? Put yourself in a place where you can sit down and even close your eyes and feel what it feels like to be in that position, to be in that place in life, to have that thing that you're going for. And when you get there, maybe that thing that you're going for right now is different because it changes over time and you start to think, well, maybe I actually want to do this instead as you begin to progress. But you put yourself in that place where you're feeling it, you're experiencing it right now in real time, in the present, even though that moment is however far out into the future. You put yourself in there where you live in it right now. And when you do this, you want to do it as often as possible. Just continue to go there, continue to live that, continue to feel it, continue to realize that before you even have that moment of actual realization. And the third step is to stay consistent. Consistency is key. You have to stay consistent if you want to see growth. If we go back to the idea of working out, if you're not consistent with working out, you're not going to see growth. Whether you're losing weight, gaining muscle, doesn't matter. You're not going to see growth because you're not staying consistent with it. Your body is going to begin to adapt and then it is going to go back to homeostasis because there's nothing that's continually pushing it forward and forcing it to make the changes necessary for you to either lose the weight or gain the muscle. So you have to stay consistent. This doesn't matter if you're trying to build a business. It doesn't matter if you are getting into sports. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get into a top school. It doesn't matter if you're dealing with mental or emotional health. You have to be consistent with whatever you're doing. Every single day, you're on it. You're focused. You're in the zone as far as staying on top of those different items that you need to do in order to see progress. Step number 4 is give yourself grace to fail. Because you are going to fail. It's not going to work out the way that you want every single time. You're going to run into obstacles that you didn't even know existed. And when you do, there's a tendency maybe to even freak out and not understand what to do. And so you fail overcoming that obstacle. That's okay. You don't beat yourself up for it. You don't get angry at yourself, call yourself names because, you weren't able to do what you were hoping to do. You have grace with yourself and you say, oh, that's all right. Okay. I didn't realize that was going to happen. Or this has been much more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I need to really up my game. I really need to work harder. I need to make sure that I am focused a lot more than what I have been. I'm giving more energy, more effort to it. When you get into it and you start to feel down on yourself, maybe you feel worthless, maybe you feel like you don't have what it takes, maybe you feel stupid, maybe you feel like, well, these people over there have these resources that I don't. You start to feel like a failure. That's okay. Be okay with it. You have to understand that not everybody has all the same resources, and that's just fine. There are so many stories of people throughout life who had varying resources and ended up overcoming whatever challenge they were going through. Would it have been nice to have, specific things that you needed or tools that you needed and people around you to be able to help you get through some of the different obstacles? Yeah, it'd be real nice. But that's not always the case. Life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you're just there going through the fire alone. Maybe you have a friend who's there with you. Maybe you have a family member who's there with you, or a mentor, or somebody along those lines, and that's it. And it's just you and every once in a while this other person, but the majority of the time, it's just you. And a lot of times it's just because you're always up in your head. You're always thinking about it. You're building your business. You're always in the business. So you can feel like you're just alone a lot. You're not alone. Have grace with yourself. Be willing to be okay with that failure. The more you can get comfortable with the failure, the more that you can get comfortable with playing the long game, the more you can get comfortable with not having to have your result right here, right now, life begins to get easier. I promise you it will. A lot of the issue is we're gripping so tightly onto this desire that we have, and it causes that consternation and frustration when we're not seeing it come to pass. The other issue is the hoping, wishing, and dreaming, and I don't want to feel this way anymore. God, please help me not feel like this. I used to hope, wish, and dream all the time, and it didn't get me anywhere. It wasn't until I started to put in the work and started to give myself grace and started to give myself the time needed to get where I needed to get. It wasn't until that moment that I started to find freedom. I hoped and wished and prayed for so many years, and nothing changed. In fact, in some instances, it got worse. So do yourself a favor and start implementing some of the steps that we talked about today. That's all I have for this video. Thank you for your time. I hope that this makes sense. I hope it encourages you. I really do. I hope it encourages you and helps take you to a place where you start to think about life differently. You start to view yourself differently, and you start to think, hey, just because I'm not where I want to be right now doesn't mean that I can't get there. Just because I'm not the person that I want to be or hope that I could be or wish that I could be, it doesn't mean I can't get there. It doesn't mean that I don't have what it takes. I promise you do. It's just, are you willing to go in and do what's necessary to get it done? All right, that's it. I hope you have a great day, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. If you enjoyed today's episode, first of all, I would like to say thank you for watching or listening. The second thing I would like to do is ask you for a huge favor, and that is for you to like the video, comment on the video, subscribe or follow my channel, and probably most importantly, share with your social network so that together we can work on changing the world and making it a better place. Again, thank you for watching or listening, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.